All right, welcome everyone as you're entering the room. We appreciate you joining us for this next go around in our Serving Up Knowledge series. Those that don't know me, my name's Tom. I'm from the Grand Prairie District Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber is so pleased to be partnering with the City of Grand Prairie on this Serving Up Knowledge series. It's a chance for business people to share ideas with business people. And it's about sharing a skill set and allowing people to leave these sessions with a specific skill set and find out a little bit more about promoting your own business, helping your own business. We are very thankful to the city for allowing us to join them on this series. So we'll just give a little more time for people to join us. We have Ryan and Marissa from 910 eagerly awaiting to begin their presentation. And we can just take the time right now to mention that this session is sponsored by 910, and they'll tell you a little bit more about themselves shortly. Some upcoming sessions, as you can see on the screen, we have cybersecurity with Tertius Janice from Fusion coming up on next Thursday at 10 a.m. Note the time. And then we take a week off for the Growing the North conference. If you're interested in joining that, you can visit growingthenorth.com. Little plug for that. That'll be on the 16th, 17th, and 18th virtually. Facebook newsfeed optimization will be coming up on Thursday, February 25th. And that will also be with 910. And we're looking forward to that. We have a whole bunch of people signed up for that one as well. And then on March the 4th, Food Photography 101 with Chris Posham. Chris from Posham Photography did such a great job with our series session last week about photography in general, about business. This one will specialize a little bit in food photography. So if you are in the catering or restaurant business or hospitality business, or you just want to make your food look good, please join us on March 4th for that. We do have a few other irons in the fire as far as presentations are concerned, and we'll be planning those and releasing those as we finalize them. We're always working with businesses who are starting to come forward and saying, hey, we've got a skill set that we can share with the community. We'd be glad to do it. So if there is something that you would like to see in one of these sessions, if there's something that you'd like to learn a little bit more about, drop us a line at the Chamber or the City Economic Development Department. We have Lauren and Rebecca on here right now. They'd be glad to hear from you, and so would I. And I have Cindy Simigan, I believe, might be on the call as well from our chamber, and there she is. So we're always looking forward to hearing from not only our members, but just the business community in general. And we want to try and help as many businesses as we can and offer as much information as we can through these sessions, and allow you to grow and expand your business. And as a result, it helps our economy and helps our region. So we have so many fantastic business people in our region, and it's wonderful that they are willing to share with other business people. So we've got 30 people in the room right now. I know we had 51, I think, registered, but we want to be mindful of people's time as well. So I think what we'll do is I will turn the mic over to Ryan and Marissa and allow them to do maybe a few introductions about themselves and what the presentation will be about. And then we will just keep an eye out and allow more people in as we go along. So without any further ado or me babbling, take it away, Ryan and Marissa.
Marissa, I'll let you introduce yourself first and then throw it to me.
All right, sounds good. So as has already been hinted at, my name is Marissa. I'm the social media coordinator at 910. This basically means I handle everything from running some Google ads and Facebook ads for clients, as well as helping clients manage things like their Google My Business, their Facebook pages, and their Instagram accounts. So that's kind of all encompassed in that social media coordinator position. So I'm kind of the go-to gal here at 910 for all that good stuff.
Perfect. Thanks, Marissa. So Marissa is one of our subject matter experts when it comes to all things digital marketing. And when we talk about that, we typically talk about brand at the foundational level. Companies have these brands and then they want to activate them online. And when we're talking about online, primarily we're talking about web, social, and search. Those are sort of the three pillars. And what we're going to be talking about today is one of those pillars, which is search. And let's get specific. We're talking about Google. And now when you start talking about Google, you can break it down and categorize it again much, much more. So today we're going to cover two items. The first is called Google My Business. Google tends to have these sort of strange names where they're self-referential. But Google My Business, as you'll learn, is basically a directory. The next thing we're going to talk about is something called SEO. You've probably heard that jargon term before. It stands for search engine optimization. And really what this is what are the things you need to do to help your website show up higher on search? Now, those are two aspects of Google, of many, many more. Search can get quite complex. It's quite powerful, but I find it's quite intuitive. If you just take the time and take a breath and sort of have someone guide you through it. And the goal of today's session is that you will leave today having a very good understanding of those two aspects that we just talked about. So let's, before I jump in, actually, the idea here is, so we'll be here for about an hour. We'll end at 4. That said, we're willing to stay a little bit longer if some people have some questions. I see there's still some people entering. Lauren, I'll let you manage admitting there as I get distracted speaking here. As we're going through, jot down some questions. So we are going to be opening up the floor. And just as a note here, if you have a question, you can go ahead and post that in the chat message. We will be monitoring that as well. And when it comes to question time, you can raise your hand. There's actually a raise your hand button in Zoom. You may or may not be familiar with that. Or you can just raise your physical hand and we will likely see you there as well. And then we'll just go into a bit of a discussion. All right, so let me jump into it. Serving up knowledge, we're going to talk about SEO and Google My Business. All right. So at 910, one of the things that we do is transfer knowledge. We do a lot of training, but most of our clients would know us as, we build websites. And the funny thing is when you build a website, whether it's made explicit or not, you're hoping that your website is found by people, it's used by people, it's discovered by people, which people, hopefully your target customers, when they're looking for the service that you're offering. And I think what is intuitive to most people is that when someone's looking for your business, they're going to go to Google. And right, so Google is the primary search engine. It's not the only one. There's Bing, there's Yahoo, there's all of these other search engines, including search engines for specific industries like TripAdvisor and Yelp and all these types of search directories just for restaurants. But Google is, of course, the main one. Now, Google within its search platform has this feature called Google My Business. So it's this idea you can, Google My Business, but that's actually the name of the program as well. So I find it the naming is a tad confusing. So what is Google My Business? So Google My Business is a free and easy to use. That part's debatable, but it's at least easy to get started. It's a free and easy to use tool for businesses and organizations to manage their online presence across Google. So Google has lots of different areas of it. And so your directory listing helps you get established across Google's large search network. This includes search and maps, and it's really there to help customers find your business and to tell them your story. You can verify your business, and then once you've verified it, you can edit your business information. So Marissa will be going through the back end of 910's business listing. And so let's just say there's 50 people on the call today, and I'm curious to hear what this actually looks like once we get into questions. There's 50 businesses on the call today. I bet less than 30 of you, less than 20 of you have actually claimed your business. And I would be surprised if there's 5 on the call that have actually claimed their business and optimized it. So what does optimize mean? It means just take the time to fill it out and make sure you give Google good information about your company. So Now, Google My Business, which I might just through for the rest of the call, I'll just call it the directory. It's a business directory that ultimately is tied to their Maps interface, and you'll see that in a moment. And it gets called up on search in various spaces. In various spots, let's say, and I'm going to show you two. So in this specific example, if someone goes to Google and they search for 910, yeah, they're going to find us. We're at the top. You can see the number one result on the top left is our website, and then there's our Facebook page. And then there's our LinkedIn, and you could say, we're dominating search. Well, not really. Someone's searching us by name, so it's pretty obvious. But you can see, and I guess the part that I wanted to point out here is over to the right where I have this listed in green. This is our Google My Business directory listing. This is where it shows our hours of operation, where there's reviews, where there's links to our website, plot, driving, directions, etc. So to the extent that you have your business directory, when Google feels it's appropriate, we'll just say when Google feels it's appropriate, we can get into more detail about what are the determinations, your directory has a chance of showing up. And look how prominent it is. It's taking up the majority of the real estate over there on the search result page right now. So that's a boom. That's a very good thing for the company if you're showing up there. Next up, I'm going to show a more general. So in this case, someone's searching for website builders, Grande Prairie. They could use different terms, website designers, website developers. And now what I've scrolled down, and I'll show this more a little bit later, is you're probably used to seeing this where it shows a map and then it shows various potential businesses for the thing you're looking for. And so here you can see 910 is one of three local web providers with her friends Salt Media and Image Design. And we're there right in the mix. And then below that is what's called the organic results. And in this specific case, we're number one as our website. And we'll get into how that works as well. But the key point here is this Google My Business directory listing, specifically the directory listing layered over top of the map, is being shown by Google. Google shows this map when it thinks the service or the product or the thing the person is searching for is a localized result. And more specifically, can we show this on a map? Is it a business? Is there a bricks and mortar location? So a lot of times people will consider this Google My Business directory, just simply Google My Business, as localized search. And so for most of you businesses, most of you local and regional businesses, you can have a pin on the map, and you do want to show up in the local search. And so the idea there is if you're not in the Google Business Directory, you're not really showing up there. There actually are some exceptions. Google does crawl the internet, and it does take index of websites, and it creates automatic Google My Business directory listings, but they're quite often wrong. The phone number's wrong. The address is wrong. It doesn't have a good description. This is where you would go and claim your business directory, and then you would optimize it at the next stage. So what we're going to have Marissa do is I'm going to share she'll take over the screen, and she's going to show you just a quick sort of background of 910's Google My Business listing. And you'll see that there's various sections, pages, where you can go and just provide information. And what you're really doing is providing information to Google so it knows more about your business, your hours of operation, whether you have parking, do you have multiple locations, what does the outside of your business look like, etc. So Marissa, over to you.
All right, perfect. So I'm just going to share my screen here. So just give me a moment to get that open. But basically the first thing I'm going to want to run through is just really how to claim your business right off the bat. If there's anything you take away from this, it's go ahead and claim your business. It's probably the easiest thing you can do to kind of help your business out. So how you can do that, there's a couple ways, and there's a couple ways this kind of might go down depending on whether Google has already created a business listing for your business, whether it has been created by someone else, or whether it doesn't exist at all yet. If it exists in some capacity, you'll actually see it when you look up your own name, and it'll pop up on the right-hand side here, as you can kind of see on my screen. And then at that point, you can just actually click Own This Business. It'll either say Own This Business or Manage This Listing. If it's Manage This Listing, it's likely not claimed. So you'll actually just go through a claiming process at that point. That can be done by text message, phone, or most commonly over a postcard, where they actually just send a postcard to a physical location, your business location, and it'll have some sort of code that you'll enter in once you get the postcard. That's the longest way it can take. That'll take about, I'd say roughly about 2 to 3 weeks for you to actually get that in. If it says own this business, that actually means that somebody has already claimed it. This might have been a previous employee, or maybe you forgot you claimed it. Once you click on own this business, it'll actually show the email address with a couple letters kind of slotted out. So I can actually show that on ours. So it's ni ... So that has claimed this listing. At this point, I can request access. If it was a previous employee or something, they might actually give you the access or whatnot. Or if it's yourself, then maybe at this point you'll go, oh, I already claimed it, and now you just need to log in. So that's kind of a quick way to do it. If you don't get a response from this in a couple days, they will actually let you go through the claiming process itself. So it's a little bit of a longer process if you have to go through that route, but you can still claim it that way. The last way is that you don't actually find one. And so you actually just go to business.google.com and you create your listing from there. And I can kind of show you how that would look. So I would log into business.google.com and there'll be an option to add a location basically once you kind of set up your initial account. And you'd actually just add your location right directly from Google and kind of go from there. So that's all about how to claim your business. And then the next step is just once you have it claimed, you'll log in through a screen that'll look like this. It'll give you access to this right away, even if it's not verified. So the verification is kind of what I was alluding to. You'll have to kind of just enter in a code. Once it's verified, that's all good. And so to go in to manage it, I actually just pretty simply click on 910 Inc. And here I am in my Google My Business account. Now, there's a lot of stuff that you can do in here, and I'm not going to go into too many details because really the most important thing you can do right now is claim the actual listing. That's going to be a huge thing right off the bat. And then you can really just go in here and make sure all the information is correct. You can do that just by going into this information tab and just updating all the information. Likely it'll actually have about a 72-hour to 3-day window where you're going to be, or a 72-hour window where you're going to have to wait for that stuff to be updated. So the quicker you can kind of get in here and actually do that, the better off you're going to be. And then from there, you can add a number of different pieces of information for your business. And you can kind of just peruse through the tabs and really add in information as you see fit. Again, the most important thing being, and that's kind of it on my end here, Ryan, if you want to take it back.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Marissa. And, what I wanted to just touch on there, Marissa said, there's lots of stuff you can do in the back end of Google My Business, and we're not going to dive into that now. What is that lots of stuff? That lots of stuff falls into the jargon industry buzzword of optimizing. And really, whenever you hear this buzzword from our industry that says we're optimizing your website for search, it just means we're being very detail oriented. And there's lots of places on the back end where we can give information to search engines and the like to help it better understand the nature of your business. So for example, a few of the things that you can do with your Google My Business listing is you can actually list products and services. You can list hours of operation and your parking. You can list whether you have multiple locations. You can give a good overview bio of your company. And to the extent that information, that good overview of your company mirrors and matches your website as well, that's a strong signal to Google that this must be a legitimate business. And we understand the nature of this business because look, it's got this detailed description over here in our business directory, which matches their website, which matches their Facebook page, which matches their LinkedIn. So now I'm obviously going off of Google My Business as I'm talking about this, but to a certain degree, this is kind of how it works as well. What Marissa has on the screen right now is products. So if you're in retail, you can actually load products. And so then it's like, what does that mean? It means that, yeah, you're loading products into Google's free business directory. Wouldn't that be wise to do that? Well, sure, it would be wise to do that. Who in retail is doing that? No one, right? Almost no one. These are really powerful tools that tend to be underutilized. There's other things you can do as well. Just like on a website, you can post blogs on a regular basis. Most of you would be familiar with posting sort of mini versions of blogs on your Facebook page. You can also post information, kind of blog style news information on your Google My Business listing as well. The example that's uplisted right here is a good one, COVID update. So how is your business being disrupted by COVID? Or maybe there's it's springtime, and for springtime, your business shifts gears into whatever else. And so you can have that listed in your Google My Business directory. So all of this falls into the category of, who's going to do that? And the reality is no one's going to do that unless, as a business owner, you allocate that time and that responsibility and that resource to someone who is going to use that. Now, this is where it gets complicated, but this is where it gets fun. There's so many things you can learn to maximize your chance of being discovered on the internet. And there's just within Google, there's lots of things you can do. But that's certainly the case over on Facebook, which I guess we'll touch on that on our next session for serving up knowledge as well. So I'm going to grab the screen back, and I'm going to shift gears a little bit from Google My Business into something else that's very closely related to that, which is, of course, SEO, search engine optimization. But Marissa, before I switch gears, do you have anything else that you want to share about Google My Business? Maybe even just, can you actually touch on some of the frustrations that some of our clients have had when they feel locked out, or, like Google saying, hey, this has already been registered. It's at this email, something blank. And they're like, I don't know which email that is, right? And they feel locked out. Maybe talk about some of those common landmines that people find themselves in.
So there are actually a few that we see quite a bit here at 910. So one of them is that you don't have access to the email address that maybe you actually use to claim it. If that's the case, you can actually go through the process of reclaiming it under a new email address. That's what I would usually recommend, unless there's some way for you to get to your old email. So that's kind of one of the big things. And basically what happens is you just have to go through a longer process, but you can still claim that listing. The other thing that we find clients running into is actually, if they haven't claimed their Google My Business listing, sometimes the information shows up is strictly incorrect. Someone has gone in there and basically said that certain information is wrong. Maybe it's an address, maybe it's a phone number. And because no one's actively managing that Google My Business account, Google just kind of takes the word of strangers on the internet that that's wrong. So they'll actually change that information. So that's another reason why it's just so incredibly important for you to claim it. Once you've claimed it and you're in there managing, it will tell you if somebody has made a suggestion to your listing, and you can actually go in and say, no, that's not right, or this is the correct information, and all that good kind of stuff. I think those are kind of the big ones that we run into lots.
Perfect. Thank you, Marissa. And we had a client this summer where someone on Google went to their business directory and reported that the business was closed and no longer in operations, which was not true. But because that client had not been managing their account, Google actually showed it as closed. And this was obviously quite devastating. People would go online to search for their type of business, and they were no longer showing up in the directory. And if someone searched them by name, they would show up as their business directory and it said permanently closed. So this is about as bad as it gets. I mean, it's not a horror story, but it's certainly not great for the business who experienced that. And it was about a month-long process for us to help them to claim it back. And part of the challenge was they ultimately didn't know which email was associated to Google when they claimed it. And, Google is maybe a little bit like Facebook in that regard. Like, good luck trying to, connect and speak to a human when you're trying to solve these problems, right? So I'm going to shift gears now, and I'm going to show a little bit more detailed breakdown of the various places that you can show up on search. And so here, this is just a screenshot of another example. So website development, Grande Prairie. So this is the way that people search. They tend to search via keywords. So website development is the keyword. It's the thing I'm looking for. But the thing to note here is I said website developer or development, but what about developer or website designer or building a website? So there's lots of variations of the way that people search. And so just think of the industry for financial planners. Someone might say financial planning, they might say estate planning, and they might say retirement planning. These are all different variations of roundabout the same service, but Google will give very different results on these. Now, the next thing you can see here is that it says Grande Prairie. This is called localizing, and most people search by localizing. They localize their searches rather just via through their experience, where they're like, if they don't do that, they might get a Wikipedia article on what website development means, or they might get like a large scale website developing firm in New York or something like that. So people tend to localize. They would say website development Peace River, or furnace repair Dawson Creek, or website development Grande Prairie, right? So when they do that, Google's algorithm mashes it together and says, okay, this human is looking for something. What is legitimately the best results that we can show them? But we have a business model. What are the first results we're going to show them? The ones that are willing to pay us. So Google has an ads platform. It's called Google Keywords. It's one of their many ways you can spend money on their platform, and it's one of the ones that we help clients manage. And so you can see website development Grande Prairie. There's 3 ads here. And as it turns out, in this specific case, 910 is the 3rd ad down. Sometimes we're the first ad, sometimes we're the 3rd ad. Sometimes our ad shows up way at the bottom. They also show ads at the bottom just before you're ready to go to the next page. If you're on page 2 of Google, you may as well not be discovered. So the thing to note here is the first place that you can show up on Google is a paid placement. This is one of Google's primary business models. So this is something you can start tomorrow. And you will only be within this paid placement to the degree that you're willing to pay Google. And the way that it works is you set up your Google Ads platform, and then it's around keywords. So you identify the keywords that you're bidding for. And so for us at 910, we bid for all of the variations of words that basically describe website design, development, etc. Then there's another bucket, which is all of the variations in words related to another block of our business, which is logo design and visual identity and branding. And then we have another bucket for all of the words related to social media and training and consulting. And then so we would have, say, 5 different buckets with about 15 or 20 keywords. So we have about 100 keywords that are relevant to our business that people might search for. And we are willing to bid more for, say, keywords related to website design than we might be willing to pay for keywords related to logo design. And then now, how much is it going to cost us? Well, it depends how popular, how much competition there is for that specific keyword. And so in the example here of website development Grande Prairie, you can see that of the ones that I'm competing with in this current screenshot, none of these are local. So we have the extra challenge that website designers outside of our marketplace, our geographic location, can very easily compete against us because websites are digital in nature. This would be less likely the case for a business. If you're bricks and mortar, you'd be competing likely within businesses within, say, 250-mile radius. Okay, so the cost to advertise here is more or less depending on the amount of competition and really how wide you spread your net. So now if someone in Lethbridge goes and they search website design Lethbridge, will 910 ads show up? No, we're not advertising there. We very easily could. And then we'd be widening our net, and we'd now be including a completely different geographic region, and therefore we would need more budget. But now we have a chance of our ad showing up as a website designer. Let's just say we serve all of Alberta and we're doing an advertising campaign in Lethbridge. So that's something that you can do with this platform as well. All of that to say, pay to play up at the top of Google. It's actually very effective, and you can measure it quite successfully. Now I'm going to scroll down and you'll see what we just were talking about, which is the Google My Business directory listing. So in this case here, Google thinks I'm looking for a local business because I localized. It knows I'm looking for a website designer. Is there a website designer that I could plot onto a map? And sure enough, we're one of the 3 here. Now, I almost never get bent out of shape if I'm not in number 1. If I'm in number 1, 2, or 3, I'm happy. And just to set realistic expectations for you, don't always expect to be number 1 on Google. Well, first of all, it's dynamic and it changes, and it depends on the search history of the person and their location and a bunch of factors. You just want to have a strong presence. There's lots of things you can do to inch your way up to the top, but here I'm very satisfied. We're showing up on the map directory listing. That's great. Now, it doesn't cost me anything to show up. So Nothing in the world of marketing is free because it always takes time, but this is about as free as it gets. Marissa filled out our Google My Business directory listing and claimed it. She took the time to put some good information in there, and now we're showing up. Whereas these ads are paid, you got to shell out the money to be there, and Google's going to put you at the top of the mix. This Google My Business directory listing is free to show up. Now, one thing that you can do, and we do this on behalf of our clients as well, is if you are advertising, you're placing ads, and if you have also claimed your Google Business directory, you can link the two systems in the back. And when you do that, although it's not showing up on this screenshot right now, you can have ads that also show up in the map section. So you probably will now notice this as you're scouring the internet, searching for things. When the map directory shows up, sometimes you'll notice there's an ad there as well. So sometimes in this map directory section, there would be a 910 ad plus our free listing, which is like double the placement. That sure is a lot of extra exposure. And of course, the one we're willing to pay for, it's free. Just before I get on to the organic listings at the bottom, the way the ads work is you set them up in Google. This is called cost per click, or some PPC, pay per click. And the idea is that this right now, logo designed by 910, that ad, that's not costing us anything. The moment someone clicks it, that's when we pay. So until someone clicks, it's free exposure. So this is the thing. You actually do want someone to click on your ad, assuming it's an ad that's well targeted. Because if someone's looking for a website and they click on that ad, I'm happy to pay that ad click all day long, because now I have a chance to earn their business and I've generated a lead and I can follow up. And so this is true of your business as well. Now, if they were to click instead on this free business directory, that didn't cost me anything. Now they're on my website, or they're getting driving directions to my business, or maybe they've clicked on the phone number. If this was on a mobile phone, there would be an additional button, which would be the phone button. Now below that is what are called organic listings. And in this example here, you can see we're number one organic for this specific search. And on your own computers, if you search website designers Grand Prairie or the variation of words like that, you will find that 910 consistently shows up in the top three, sometimes number one, sometimes number two, sometimes number three. But generally, what I try to have as for a business is we have a strong presence. We have an ad. We're there to be found in the ad space. And if someone clicks, we'll pay. If not, it's free exposure. We're there in the Google My Business directory. And we're there in search. In this case, we're number one. Sometimes we're number two. Sometimes we're number one and two. Sometimes we're number two and three. And this would be like, a very strong level of exposure. And let me just go back and share this screen again. All right. Marissa, is it now just showing my PowerPoint again? Maybe raise your hand if it is.
It is actually not showing anything. So I don't know if you want to try that again.
Yeah, let me just try that again. There we are. How about now?
No, it's still a black screen. So.
Okay. So Marissa, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you share the screen and go to the slide after the Google My Business with the 910 logo. And then I'll just have you advance on my behalf and we'll go through some of the content.
Let me just get the right link here.
So while Marissa is trying to load that, I will just carry on and find my slide placement here. So what I wanted to do next is to describe the term search engine optimization. SEO is the buzzword. And really what SEO is, it's working to have your website appear as high as possible in search for a specific set of keywords within a specific geographic region, ultimately against your competitors. There are over 200 factors that Google's algorithm considers when it's trying to determine where your website is going to be placed. And what I find is that, so you can go to the screen with the SEO logo and all the sort of the complicated icons there, Marissa. There we are. Thank you. So yeah, there's about 200. There's about 200 factors that Google looks at, but really everything can be boiled down into really 4 categories. And certainly some of the things that you can and should do are within your power to do it. Some of them are much more technical and really should be your professional web vendors that are doing them, but others are something that you can do on your own. So if you can advance to the next slide, Marissa. Okay, so this is just a reminder that there's this, when we talked about the top of search placement, that is paid. You have to pay to be there. But below that was the Google Google My Business directory listing. I really don't like their name. It trips me up all the time. That is a free placement, free to the extent that you've taken the time to do it. But you can also do paid within that as well. And then you'd also say you own that. Once you've claimed that, you've owned it, although it's sort of their property, right? Still. And then there's earned, the big purple one in the middle. So go ahead. And the earned is really what SEO is all about. So if you can advance to the next slide. So next slide, please. Keep going. I had actually already showed these ones. One more. So that was just, again, leave it there for a second. So this is an example of an interior page on our website about logo designs. So where I'm highlighting it here, you can see that we've optimized our website, right? So what does that mean to optimize? It's, again, the little things that you can do, the attention to detail that is going to help Google and humans figure out what the heck your service is. So you can see in our top heading there, this is on the back end, this is an H1. You don't need to remember that term, but there's a certain structure and hierarchy on the content, and Google indexes websites and reads them in a certain area in a certain way. And what we're seeing here is the main title, we're saying logo designers in Grande Prairie. What we're really trying to capture there is those people that would be searching for logo design Grande Prairie. And then Google would say, I think I got a website for you. I know that because on their homepage, it talks about all their services they do, logo design being one of them. They're located in Grande Prairie, and they have a dedicated page within their website that says logo designers Grande Prairie. And then, additionally, we have lots of information about our process, about sort of what type of clients we serve. We have a contact us form. So there's a map, there's a form to get a hold of us. There's a number. There's also blog articles. There's blog articles, as you can see on the side, about logo design and branding. So we are really earning is the word, we are earning our stripes. We are proving to Google that if someone's looking for a logo design, you'd be crazy to send them anywhere else. Send them to our website. Look at us. And so when we see our competitors sort of vying, and we're jumping between number 1, number 2, number 3, well, it's because they're also doing a fairly convincing job to Google to convince Google that, these are 3 good agencies you should check if you're looking for logo design in Grande Prairie. So this is the equivalent of what you need to do on your website to show up organically in that bottom spot of Google. So when people, if you're a business owner and you ask the general question, I wonder how my website's doing on search, I would say, you can go to the next slide, Marissa. Let's see where we are. I would say that's a meaningless question because, well, how are you doing on Google? Well, it depends what someone's looking for. So if someone's Googling 910, I better show up first. If I don't, then I have serious problems with my website. Go ahead and Google your own website by name. If you're not at the top, you have issues. Call us or call someone. But that's probably not what you're going to find. More importantly, what you want to know is when someone's looking for a product or a service that you offer, but they don't know you by name. So if someone goes and says, logo designers Grande Prairie, are we showing up? What if they're looking for advertising companies Grande Prairie or website designers Grande Prairie? So the answer to how are you doing on search is a granular example. It's an answer that is different every time you ask the question, depending on which keywords you're choosing and which geographic region you're choosing. So for most of you, you care about how you're going to be discovered, let's say in the Peace region. And then if you have 3 service divisions, then you would want to make sure that you're discoverable both for your, for whatever those service divisions are. And so the way that you do that is by building a website that proves to Google across 200 plus factors that you should be listed at the top. And I'm going to distill those down to 4 main buckets of things that you need to do to earn that placement. So Marissa, if you can maybe go back to the screenshot of Google where there is the earned. Yeah, one right there. Okay, so at the top, what you're not seeing here was the paid. That was the first spot. Then you have the Google map directory listing, the free listing. And then below that is what's called organic results. There's only 10 on a page of Google, and then it goes to the next page. So this spot has to be earned. You can't pay it, and it ain't free. You have to build a website that is technically proficient, full of great relevant content, is kept up to date and has lots of activity and links, and has earned the trust of Google in terms of security and sort of signals that legitimize it as a secure business that's not fly by night. So if you can go back to the algorithm slide, Marissa, and then one past that. Thank you. Now, newsstand, perfect. The last slide was algorithm. You guys all have algorithms in your mind when you can intuitively think about how this works. So pretend you're at Al's News. Let's talk about a local vendor that's been, I think Al's News recently celebrated their 75th, or is it 100 years? They've been around for a long time. When I'm in Al's News, I'm at the counter paying and I just look left. And I look down at all of the magazines and the papers. And I can see what's in the news. And I'm lazy. I didn't bend over. I didn't pick up any of them. And I can see what's in the news, what's happening in Calgary, what's happening in the US. And I can read the headlines from the New York Times, from the Calgary Herald, from the Toronto Sun. And just by quickly glancing, I get a sense of what's in the headlines. And sometimes, so if you think of a traditional newspaper, the leading story has the largest title. And then sometimes you can even read the subtitles, and then your eye can quickly glance to the main topic areas. And then sometimes there's even a secondary story, smaller title rather, but you can still sort of see that. So what I was able to do there without actually bending it over and picking up the newspaper, I have not read the article. I could walk out of Al's News and I would have a really good sense of at least what's happening in the news. And I could probably engage in some coffee talk with some of my friends. Now, there's a corollary to what Google is doing when it's looking at businesses. So I showed our website and we had Logo Designers Grand Prairie as our main title, which in the back was H1. These are headings. This is the equivalent of a newspaper having a larger title and then slightly smaller subtitles and then potentially even subtitles. It's a way for the human eye to quickly glance through and browse without reading all of the content. Well, Google has a lot of work ahead of itself. It has billions of pages and sections of the internet that it has to index. And although it's sitting behind it is these vast server farms and supercomputers, there's still a limitation on speed. So when Google indexes website, it does the equivalent of what I just did there. It looked and it said, what's in the headlines? That'll tell me something about this website. And so to the extent that you've built a website with a homepage and multiple interior pages, and you've used these headings and these subheadings properly filled with descriptive information, then Google has a good sense about what your website is on its first index. And this is what is indexed on search. And actually the information in these headings is also the information that gets copied and pasted into the descriptions that sit below your name in search. So you can be very intentional. You can be very purposeful in how you use this, and you would be doing Google a favor. So if someone is looking for trade show pop-up tents in Grande Prairie, because it's trade show season for the petroleum show or something like this, and 910 offers those, but I don't have that information on my website, Google's not making a mistake to not put me up in search. I don't have any information about that. So why would Google recommend me? And so most of the time when I'm talking to clients, I'm like, why am I not showing up on search? Well, first of all, I say, that's a meaningless question. What do you mean? You're not showing up on search for what? When people are searching for what? They're like, well, for any of our businesses. Well, or any of our services. Well, which services? Well, trade show tents. Okay, let's go to your website. Where's the information about trade show tents? Nowhere. There you are. And they say, well, actually, yeah, we have information about trade show tents, and we go through their website and we find that on the page dedicated to websites, down at the bottom, it says, we also do trade shows. I'm like, well, that's not very prominent. Couldn't we build a dedicated page about trade shows? And couldn't we use the headings and the descriptions to give lots of good information to Google about We offer trade shows. We both design and print, and we warranty them. And here are the 4 different labels that we carry. And here's maybe some pricing. And then we would prove to Google, we'd earn the fact that someone who's looking for trade show materials, this is a legitimate website to send them to. As it turns out, we don't do trade shows, so you won't find that on our website. But if we did, and I'm not showing up in search, I certainly couldn't get upset with Google for not showing me. So go ahead and go to the next. Okay. I'm going to go through these very, very quickly, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So how do you earn your placement? You cannot pay for this. How do you earn your placement in that bottom part of search, what most people consider just their search placement? There's 4 main buckets, 4 main categories of things. Next slide. So the first one is technical. These are things like your website is securely hosted, your website is mobile friendly, your website loads quickly. It has, if there's any plugins that do certain features, photo galleries or scrolling testimonials, that they're stable, they're secure. It's your proper use of headings. It's whether your website, your photos you upload use meta tags and alt data, all of these technical things. Now, generally speaking, if you're working with a vendor, if you're working with a 910, we just got your back covered. We do this for you. You should never, if you're hiring someone to build a website for you, you should not be in charge of the technical stuff. You're hiring that off. We got you covered. And these are the types of things. So there's some level of best practices or minimum level sort of entry point. If there's a phone number on your website, we make it a touch to call button on mobile. If there's a map, we make that an interactive Google map. If there's a form, it works and you can send a submission through and then it'll email someone and it'll do that in a secure portal because it's a securely hosted website. If you're missing any of these technical missteps, Google will either fail to reward you or will penalize you. If your website is not securely hosted, go to your website, and in the browser beside your website address, if there's a little thing that says not secure, or if it doesn't have a lock icon, your website is not secure. You're being penalized in search. If your website is not mobile friendly, you're being penalized in search because most people search now predominantly from their mobile phones, and Google's not going to send someone to a non-mobile optimized website when they're on a mobile device, given other options. Okay, next slide, Marissa, please. The next one is content relevance. So that's what I talked about. I'm not showing up for search when people are searching for trade show tents, but I don't have any information on my website about that. So go and get information on your website about that. And you generally want to structure your website so that it's very clear about who you are, what you do, what's your trade area, what are your products and services, what do you have in terms of career opportunities or community involvement or safety regulations or warranty. If that information is not there, Google doesn't know about it, and you are doing yourself a disservice compared to your competitors who have done that. Next up. The next one up is traffic and activity. To the extent that you have websites, other places linking to your website, that is called inbound traffic. Your Google My Business directory listing, that directory listing that Marissa showed the back end, that's one inbound link. That's Google's main directory is linking to your website. What about your Facebook page? Does it link to your website? What about your Twitter account? What about your LinkedIn? What about your directory listing in the Chamber of Commerce? Does that link to your website? Do all of those have the same description of your website? Do they all have the same address? Do they all have the same phone number? To the extent that you have all of these links in, you're proving to Google that you are a legitimate website that's useful to humans, and there's lots of activity, lots of links going in. If you're a realtor, for example, you would, for example, ask your happy clients at the key ceremony to maybe post a testimonial and link to your website or link to your Facebook page. These are the types of things that Google likes. How many people are finding your website from various paths? Now, when you have websites that are a legitimate, respected, viable sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Struggling for words, so I'll just use the Chamber of Commerce would be a good example. Google understands the nature of chambers of commerce, that they are legitimate business directories. Better Business Bureau would be an example of that as well. To the extent that you're listed on those, that's Chamber of Commerce vouching for the legitimacy of your business, and it's linking to your website. That helps with the trust score on your website as well, which is actually the next one. Now, the other thing, so that's inbound links. There's also outbound links. Just think if you're a mortgage broker, someone comes to your website for all of these useful resources to help plan for your purchase of your next house, and it links to a useful mortgage calculator over on a different website. So in that instance, you're actually sending someone off your website, but you're being useful, you're being helpful. Google rewards you for that. So to the extent that you have useful resources that links off of your website to useful, trustworthy places, that gives you a boost as well. Activity is the freshness factor. How recently have you updated your website? If you paid someone like 910 or another agency to build you a website, and then you sat on your laurels for 3 to 5 years, we see that quite often. You're not getting any reward points from Google for that set of factors that it considers. In contrast, if you maintain a weekly or a monthly blog, plus you have a section for FAQs, plus you have newly added testimonials, and you have maybe a project showcase showing, pretend you're a landscape company, and throughout the summer, you've uploaded 12 new projects that you just did. Google sees that you're a legitimate, thriving business, and you're proving that you're there and stable and helpful. Now, the way to think about search engine or SEO all the time is, all things being equal, you and your competitor, you're both doing things exactly the same, except for you're producing fresh content, edge to you. And that's how I think about SEO. Next slide, and then we'll go to questions. This one, you're not so much in control of is time. All things being equal, exact same scenario. Both companies are doing as well in terms of all of the factors that matter, except for this one's been online for three years, and this one's been online for 3 months. You're going to lose out on that edge, all other things being equal. So time isn't something you can control other than being consistent over time. So if your website has been posted for 5 years, and over those 5 years, you've been consistent and fresh, and you've been securely hosted, your website hasn't broken or gone down or been infected. Why would it have been infected with a virus? Because over in the technical stage, you weren't updating your software, all these types of things. So they're a Venn diagram. They all overlap, but these 200 factors that Google cares about is really technical factors, content relevance, activity and links, and then time and trust. Those are really what you're trying to master for Google to show up on search. Next slide. Perfect. There we are. So let's open it up to questions. We are monitoring the chat questions. So you can also just raise your hand, or I actually encourage someone just coming off mic. Just note though, if you do come off mic, you will likely come on screen, and this is being recorded, and it will be shared on both the city and the chamber websites and social media accounts in the future. But do feel free to step forward and ask a question.
It'll also be shared on their YouTube channel as well. I just want to kind of add that in there.
Perfect. Ray Lynn, I'm going to maybe throw it to you, or you can even put it back in there. You asked me to repeat something again just a little while ago, and I can certainly return to that. And someone, while we were chatting there, said, do you know you're facing the wrong camera? I do know now. Thank you. So while we're waiting for that okay, thank you, Lynn. Sean asked, in regards to earning your place for a product or idea or pages, do pages ever expire? If I have a product page for a product that is heavily optimized for SEO, but it was created 2 years ago, would Google ever assume it's dead or expired? Does it recognize in stock versus out of stock? That's a really good question. So yeah, generally that sort of freshness factor, if you have something that is sitting there and it's not really been updated for a long time, it's not that it'll expire. I mean, just the fact that you have that in your product catalog, it is still technically there. It would certainly help if you were updating photos or updating descriptions of that as well. But Google also measures activity. Now, if you haven't updated it in 2 years, it's the same product description and same product photo, but it's a really popular product and people keep buying for it. It's like a product that gets lots of traffic on your website, lots of exposure. Google is actually measuring that as well. Where you'd be in trouble is like, this product is a dead end. No one ever goes to it. There's an outdated picture and it hasn't been updated for a long time. And you're thinking, well, this is a really important product for us. I would, in that case, probably recreate a new product listing, change a new photo, maybe surface it to your homepage if you're using something like featured products, and then maybe post that to Facebook. Maybe add that product to your Google My Business listing. Point to it. Try to drive some traffic to it. Try to get some activity going on it again. There was a question, what's something like this service cost? So it depends which service you're talking about. If you're talking about registering your Google My Business listing, or maybe doing paid ads, or can you, Mezanasaf, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, apologies. Do you mind coming off the mic to provide a little bit more clarity on that question? Again, feel free to type that if that's easier.
Basically, like what can be done, like for the whole SEO like that you guys provide, in terms of like looking after the website and maintaining it, and keep it like up rank on the search engine, and connected, or like link it to all the other social media, in terms of Facebook and Instagram and other YouTube and other photos.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, our pillars that 910 focuses on is web, social, and search. So the answer to that question differs a little bit, but let's start with search. So the first thing with search, the low-hanging fruit, go and get your Google My Business listing established. I would recommend that you try to do that on your own, because it's a good idea to learn how to do that. Plus, going through that will develop a skill set that I think is necessary for businesses anyways, in terms of raising your capability with sort of taking advantage of these digital platforms. Now, that said, sometimes clients are having issues and challenges with those, and so we need to help them. So what I've found is that our range for helping clients to set up their Google Business Directory listing is between 250 and 750. That's been about a range over the last year or so we've been doing this. Why the spread? Well, sometimes it's not quick. Sometimes we have a lot of hunting to do, and we have a lot of claiming, and there's just a lot of back and forth, and trying to help clients determine why they've lost access to their website. This actually happens sometimes when companies lose access to their Facebook page. Now, in terms of, so that's getting established in the Google My Business Directory listing. Now, the paid ads at the top, this is called Google Keywords. We manage that for clients as well. And we find that the average monthly cost for most clients to do that would be $750 to about $1,000 a month, assuming they're targeting an array of keywords within the Peace region. Now, the way that works is there's the agency fee. This is assuming you're hiring someone to do it on your behalf. So in this case, our flat agency fee to manage a client's Google Ads campaign on their behalf, we have a flat fee of $500 per month. And that's all inclusive. That's everything to do about managing the campaigns, keyword research, writing the ad copy, developing the landing pages, managing the results, doing A/B testing, like optimizing them as we go. Again, there's that buzzword. And then there's the ad spend, the money that you pay to Google when people click. The way we set it up is that our monthly fee is flat, and then we work with you to determine what you believe your ad spend should be. Now, there's lots of metrics we look at to determine what your ad spend should be, but ultimately what we do is we set a max threshold, and it won't spend more than that, but it certainly might spend less than that. And that your ad budget will depend on your geographic region, how big or small it is, and it'll also depend on how competitive your keywords are. So a large geographic region with very popular keywords, lots of competition, your ad budget won't go very far, so you need to rationalize a higher ad budget. But for just general sort of budgeting, I would say between $750 to $1,000 a month for a Peace region business. Lots of reasons why this could be up or lower, up or down. That's a good sort of budgeting point if you're thinking about paid placement on Google. Now, the bottom of Google, earning it, you have to build a website that is technically proficient, has lots of good relevant content, is maintained on a regular basis, and is earning trust. So that is a more complex question. It depends if you're trying to do that in-house or if you're working with a vendor like 910 or one of the other local providers. And then you'll find that's a very wide range question, anywhere from $2,500 to $25,000. That's actually the spread of the websites that we create. And there's a lot of variability in there depending on the industry and depending on if it's e-commerce and whatnot. So Hopefully that was a bit of a long-winded answer. I hope that provided it. Okay, does Google search result take into account the information you have posted on Facebook? Yes. So in the example there on the screen where we showed, we searched 910 by its name, I think you saw that our website was number one, and then below that was our Facebook, and then below that was our LinkedIn. So all of the major platforms, I call these touch points. If someone's looking for lawn care Grande Prairie and your lawn care company's Facebook page shows up, you're like, sweet. To a certain degree, you don't really care so much if someone's looking for a service and they land on your LinkedIn page or on your website or on your Google My Business listing or on your Facebook page, they found you. And as long as those are each sort of set up or optimized, so that they have a phone number, they have an address, they have your hours of operation, maybe an overview of your services, and you're good. So having a Facebook page will help you be more discovered in search. It won't necessarily help your Google My Business directory listing. That you have to just set up and optimize on your own. But having a Facebook page can also help your website show up higher in search because your Facebook page is linking to your website. So this is one of those off-site links. So it's like you're linking to your website from a prominent other location. All right, Sean, I would love to know how to direct my followers to follow us on Google My Business, but I can't seem to find the link to share to allow people to follow us. Sometimes the follow button will show on a random listing. I searched, other times it's not there. How do I enable this button or make sure it shows all the time? I will let Marissa cover that question in detail, but first I would say that people are not in the habit of following Google My Business listings. So that would be an example of one of the features that you could do if you're like trying to maximize doing everything right. That's at the end of the list of many of things. There's many things that you should do before that, right? So I would say it's much more important to have people following you on Facebook, to subscribe to your newsletter, to follow you on LinkedIn. If you actually are posting updates on your Google My Business listing on a regular basis, I would say kudos to you. You're one of the few that's doing it, but that's there for search engines. It's less there because you have a client that happens to be a Google My Business follower. Very few people would do that. And I would think that would be law of diminishing returns, probably not the best use of your time spent on that.
So the direct answer to this is a little bit complicated as well. Basically, they will need to be signed into a Google account as well. So if the option's not coming up, it might be because you aren't signed in. It's also only supposed to show on mobile devices. So if you're not seeing the option, it might just be because you're on the computer or whatnot. As far as making it really easy for people to follow, just kind of sending directions would be here. This is going to be something that people who are kind of power Google users would be really into doing, and they probably already know how to do that. I don't actually know if there's a direct link you can send them other than telling them to Google your business. That's the only way I really know of. So if that's something that you see people doing a lot, is actually following your business on there, that's already really awesome. So just kind of sending them there to do that as well is kind of a great move as well.
Yeah. Marissa, do you mind stopping the screen sharing while we're done with that? Let's go back to our cameras. The other thing to note about that, your Google My Business listing, your Google My Business directory listing is also where businesses, where sort of people will review you on within the Google platform. You can get reviews on your business. So your Google My Business listing would be where you would do that. So if you are a business that after you've delivered the service or the product, you reach out to customers to request reviews, what you would want to do is direct them to your Google My Business directory listing. So there's actually a link to that specific listing. And I would, instead of saying, go find us on Google My Business and review us, you would send them an email, for example, and you say, we'd love your feedback. Can you please click on here if you're so inclined and go review us on Google. Now, in order to do that, they have to have a Google account, which many people don't. So if they're like on Hotmail or on Yahoo, or they just don't altogether have kind of a Gmail account, then they won't be able to do that. And so most people are not going to go and create a Google account just to do a review. So the amount of reviews you'll get on your Google My Business listing will depend a little bit on the profile of your customers and if they are people that are generally have Google accounts. This is a little bit easier over on Facebook. Most people are on Facebook, and most people stay logged in Facebook as they browse the internet. You can also send a link to a happy customer and say, we'd love your feedback. Do you mind reviewing us on our Facebook page? So whether someone's reviewing you on your Google My Business listing or on your Facebook account, they're both good. One's good for search, one's good for Facebook. They all show up in search, and they all help people discover you on one of the touch points, which ultimately should all be pointing back to your website. So it's not really helpful to get into a technical ranking order of which one's better exactly and which one should I do first. Do them all if you can. If you think you have customers that would be willing to review you, give them the option. So when we're done working with a client, unless I forget or unless I'm being lazy, I tend to follow up and say, can you let us know what it was like to work with our team? Did we rock it for you? Did we do a good job? And if you're willing to provide any public praise, click on one of these two buttons. And if I know that the client happens to be really active on social, I might just direct them straight to Facebook. If I know they're a little bit more tech savvy, I'd ask them, it's really valuable for us. Would you mind reviewing us and leaving a testimonial on our Google page? And even if you were to do 5 of these a year, it's 5 a year that you didn't have. And this is where it starts to get a bit challenging for clients. It's like, or for businesses, so many things to do, but these are the powerful things that you can do, and it's within your reach. Ray Lynn, as an owner of a denturist clinic, do you recommend adding the products we sell to our website? We don't sell much. It's mostly denture cleaner and mouth rinse, etc. Only a few products. Yes. Well, it depends. Do you want people to know that you sell these products? I assume the answer is yes. Then they should be on the website. And so you want the humans to know. So yes, it should be on the website. Do you want search engines to know? Do you want Google to know that you sell these products? The answer to that is probably yes too. So then yes, it should be on your Google, on your website. So the short answer to that is yes. And now to have products in your website does not mean you have to take the full step to e-commerce where it's like products and there's a shopping cart and they can buy them and now there's transaction of money. You can just have a section on your website. We build these for clients all the time where we have a nice little product gallery. And it's maybe not even all of their products. It's just showing humans in Google that we carry products in these 4 categories: whitening stuff, breath aids, toothbrushes, and more technical stuff for braces or whatever, right? So absolutely, I would recommend having those on your website. Over on your Facebook page, Facebook also has a tab. This is a more advanced feature. You can create basically the equivalent of a shopping catalog on your Facebook page as well, where you can load these products. So there again, what are you doing? You're showing your Facebook humans that you have products, and you're showing Facebook's algorithm that you have products. In the same way that Google My Business listing has a place for you to add products. Well, if you add your products there, Google is very clear that you have products, and it's also showing that those products are matching over on your website to ting. And so you can see how these all line up. And I think most of you will find that all of these steps are intuitive. You don't have to be a web genius to figure this out, but you do need to take the time to do it. And this is where it gets tedious and time consuming, and probably why most businesses will fail to do it, even if they have the knowledge, which is of course what we're transferring today. Sean. Okay, thanks, Marissa. I didn't find that. We currently only have 7 followers on Google My Business, but 11K on Facebook, plus more with Insta, YouTube, etc. Yeah, and it's common. You'll have many less followers on Google My Business, and I wouldn't be so worried about that, Sean. All right, we are past 4. So at this point, certainly, if there's any other questions, we will stay on, but I will transfer it back over to Tom to close us out. And then Marissa and I will stay on a little bit longer if there's any other questions after this, I guess, formally closes.
Okay. That was fantastic. Thanks, Ryan and Marissa. Always a pleasure hearing from you guys and working with you. I'm going to put in the chat box next week's information about cybersecurity, and you can visit our website to register for that series if you haven't already. We want to thank the folks from 910 for their wonderful presentation today. And again, we'll be uploading it to the city's YouTube channel for you to review if there was something you'd like to go back and check out. And there's a lot of information and a lot of great information. And I'm sure if there are things that you want to go over again, you'll be able to do that here in the next couple of days. Again, February 25th, we'll be serving up some knowledge on Facebook newsfeed optimization with our friends from 910 again, and then serving up knowledge with food photography 101 on March 4th with Chris Posham from Posham Photography. And then there'll be more in March and April and May, and we hope, and we'll just keep doing this as we keep hearing from you as to what you'd like to find out more about. And if you have a skill set you'd like to share with the community, let us know as well. So thank you to everyone. Thanks to the city and on behalf of the chamber and everyone else. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.